Let's get into your Michigan data. You just come out of the field there.
Yeah.
What did you learn? What did you see?
So Michigan's a very interesting state. When we talk about national numbers with the working class and we talk about these different margins that different candidates enjoy, Michigan's interesting because it's still very white, yet there are some stubbornly Democratic ancestral voting groups, even among whites and older voters that are much more Democratic than some of the other Great Lakes states and certainly nationwide overall. And there's a couple of things that Trump has to do in order to win that state, and one of them is break into that group, and he is. So that's one of the. There's a lot of stories in this poll, Charlie, but that's one of them. And the reason why it caught my eye is because I remember Michigan in 2016. Now, we did have Trump +1 in Michigan in 2016. It was Hillary +2, +3 until that final week when those undecided older white Democratic voters decided. They would call them, remember, Reagan Democrats, people used to refer to them as back then, when they were undecided and they decided, fine, I'm going with Trump. That, coupled with a group that supported Bernie actually backing Trump, put him over and put him over barely. But now it's that plus some other things that are going on. The biggest movement in Michigan in our poll is occurring in southeastern Michigan. It's like we know what's going to happen in Up. The only question is whether or not there's high turnout in Up, right? And I mean the Upper Peninsula for folks who aren't familiar with the state. We know he's going to win Southwest Michigan. We know he's going to, rout the areas in the central part of the state. It's the southeastern part of the state where we have the Macomb-Oakland combination. And then, of course, how well is he doing in Monroe? How well is he doing in Macomb? And then Wayne County. Look at the numbers in Wayne County. Charlie, I went back in our poll in 2020, which was Biden +2, and that's basically what he won by. In our final poll in Michigan, Trump was in the 20s in Wayne County. He wound up getting about 30%. He's in the 30s before you lean undecided voters. What's driving that? It's the same story that we've heard for a long time now. Lower propensity voters that are voting that did not vote in 20, and then also young black men. And I mean, there are other groups, but young black men are more than but black men in general, period, no matter what age, combined are more than 2 in 10 for Donald Trump. So what you see in other polls in Michigan, the Quinnipiac poll, which I think was a little too bullish, Charlie. This is much closer, this poll, but it's still a Trump advantage. But Epic MRA, Mitchell Research, these guys have been polling state for years. They see it. And I was wondering whether or not our numbers would be that high with some of these groups. They are. So it's good,
would you say then, just kind of to square that, Michigan is very much in play, and we're seeing a October surge that the Kamala campaign was not expecting from Donald Trump. They thought that Michigan would be wrapped up with a bow on it, and they could focus all their resources on advancing in the Sun Belt or closing up Pennsylvania. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, it is. I got to tell you, Michigan looks like Pennsylvania did a month and a half ago, which is, you know what? Trending towards Trump, but still close. Now Pennsylvania just kind of looks, we're in Pennsylvania as well. It kind of looks ugly at this point for her. I'm not saying she cannot turn it around, but it looks ugly. And Michigan is starting to look like Pennsylvania did a month ago. So, Michigan is historically the harder of the three Rust Belt or the Great Lakes states for any Republican to carry. Even Trump, who once carried all three, it was still the one that was the closest. And then in 20, when he lost them, and he narrowly lost all three of them, it was the state that gave Joe Biden the largest margin. So that's why we're really focusing on those two states, because we feel like, honestly, if he buttons up both of those states, it's very difficult to see how he loses, right? So I got to tell you, even in 2016, when he finally took a lead at the very end, it didn't look like this. And let me, if I don't know how much time we got, but let me give people like the simple equation on how a Republican needs to win.
45 seconds.
Okay.
Please.
A Republican needs to do well enough, or basically needs to do well enough in Macomb County to almost make Oakland a wash, because you're going to lose Oakland. And then you have to take your margin in Monroe, which is to the south, all around the Detroit area. And Trump will do very well there. And combine with Macomb, make Oakland County a wash. And then the rest of the state you need to use to offset the margin that Wayne County is going to give the Democrat. But Democrats are supposed to hold Republicans at 30% of the vote in some of these areas, and that's not going on. So even a small shift in the black vote like we are seeing is having a pretty dramatic impact. Kamala isn't gaining in Oakland any more so than Joe Biden did, but she's definitely not making up any ground whatsoever with the working class in Macomb and Monroe, Saginaw and Genesee, all those areas, the Obama-Trump areas, folks, very important. Biden did well, pulled some of those voters back. She's struggling.